Right ahead.
Thanks so much, Sharonda. So, yeah, thank you all so much for having me. My name is Aaron. I'm here to talk to you guys about ranked choice voting today. But before I do that, just a little bit about myself, about why I'm here. So, I'm a college student, and as a college student, I hear people talk all the time about, oh, why are the youth so disengaged? Why don't the youth care about politics? And from my experience, that's just not the case. The youth care a lot about politics. We very deeply, passionately care. We just feel like we have a system that doesn't allow our voices to be heard, and it doesn't allow us to actually have an impact. And when you feel like that, it does become a bit disheartening, and eventually you do decide to maybe step back and to maybe stop being involved. And that, I mean, obviously that's a huge detriment to young people, it's a detriment to people like myself. It's also just a detriment to this country because we're losing, all of the ideas and all of the knowledge of young people and all the fresh ideas that the young people can bring, and that really are the backbone of the future of this country. But luckily, I believe that there is a solution to this whole problem, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. So RCV Maryland is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization building support for ranked choice voting through grassroots organizing in Maryland. And there are all sorts of ways that you guys can get involved. I'm going to give you some ways to get involved with us at the end of this presentation. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about three main things. We're going to talk about why American politics feels so broken, what the root cause of all of that is, and what we can do to fix it. So who here remembers the 2000 presidential election? Yeah. So this election was obviously a big deal, but what it really came down to was this 537 vote difference in the state of Florida between George Bush, the Republican, and Al Gore, the Democrat. And then the Green Party candidate, Ralph Nader, who got around 1.6% of the vote. And a lot of people at the time of this election, leading up to this election, were really, really worried that Ralph Nader was going to take votes away from Al Gore. And so they encouraged Ralph Nader not to run. They encouraged voters to not vote for Ralph Nader. And actually, we do have the data from exit polls, and we do know that had Ralph Nader not run, Al Gore likely would have won in Florida. He would have beat George Bush. And you can have all sorts of opinions about the 2000 presidential election. A lot of people do. I have a lot of opinions about the 2000 presidential election, about the hanging chads, the Supreme Court, all of that. But really what the 2000 presidential elections is it was our democracy not functioning properly. Because Al Gore was the preferred candidate to George Bush by a majority of people. And he did not win that election because a third candidate entered. And so our democracy essentially broke down once we had more than two candidates running. And that's just a problem. You can hate Ralph Nader, you can love Ralph Nader, but him running should not have made our democracy stop working. And unfortunately, in 2000, it did. But this is just one example. And so you might think, okay, how common of a problem is this really? And the answer is pretty common. Between 1992 and 2019, 49 US senators were elected with less than a majority of support. And if you look at primary elections, that problem gets even bigger. Of the representatives in Congress between 2017 and 2019, less than half won their first primary with a majority, and 1 in 5 had 35% support or less. In fact, you don't even need to look at the House or the presidency or the Senate to see this problem. You can look right here in Baltimore, where in this mayoral election in 2020, 70% of people who voted in the primary election did not vote for Brandon Scott. They voted for someone other than the candidate who ended up winning. And it's pretty easy to see why that happened when you look at this whole field. When you're running with around 20 candidates, it becomes very, very difficult to actually get a majority of the vote, which is how you see people win despite 70% of people voting for someone other than them. But vote splitting in the spoiler effect is not the only problem that our current system causes. We also see a lot of polarization, and part of this comes from the primary problem. Most congressional seats, I think almost all of them in Maryland, are safe for one party or the other, which means that the primary is the election. And primaries tend to have a ton of candidates, and they tend to be pretty low voter turnout affairs, which means that you can win a primary with a very small fraction of the vote, which means we have candidates who are often more extreme and who don't represent the general public winning in these primaries and going on to represent us for a very, very long time in Congress. Additionally, we see this problem of negative partisanship. A lot of people, I bet a lot of people even in this webinar, vote for a party not because they really strongly believe in that party, but because they really strongly hate the other party. And that is just the natural result of our low choice elections. Because when you have only two options, you as a candidate are incentivized more so to attack the other choice and to attack the other candidate instead of developing popular policies and pitching yourself to the public and explaining what you would do if you were elected. And what that ends up doing is that creates this really toxic environment that we have today where, relatives are blocking each other on Facebook and you're maybe not inviting all the same people to Thanksgiving that you used to. And that is just the result of our low choice elections. So as we can see, our pick one voting system is failing. It restricts freedom to run and freedom to choose in the voting booth. So that's both for the candidate and for the voter. It's vulnerable to spoiler outcomes when more than two people do run. It undermines the wishes of the majority by helping divisive candidates win in crowded primary fields. It distracts from healthy issue-based campaigns, and it feeds division through a dangerous cycle of polarization and toxic partisan attacks. But we have a solution. One simple change: ranked choice voting. So what is ranked choice voting? Well, instead of picking just one candidate, ranked choice voting lets you rank multiple candidates in the order that you prefer them. Pretty simple. This is what a ballot looks like under our current system. Under ranked choice voting, one simple change looks like this. And just to demonstrate how easy this is for the voter, we're going to use it right now. We're going to use it to pick out a dessert, pretty low stakes, nothing too controversial. But if you scan this QR code, you will be able to rank your favorite desserts. There are like 3 options. And you can look at the results of all of you people who are ranking this right now. You can see how this ends up working out using ranked choice voting. I'm going to give you all a second to do that. All right. So how are these ballots going to be counted now? We've all seen pretty easy on the voter side, but what actually happens with your vote? Well, first round, count first choice votes. In this election, you can see that dark orange, with only first choice votes, has 55% of the vote. That's the majority. She wins. That's it. Dark orange is elected. But let's look at a different scenario. In this scenario, dark orange is again in first, but no one has a majority in the first round after the first choice votes are counted. So what do? Well, under our current system, that's it. Dark orange would win. But with ranked choice voting, we get to find out who actually has majority support. So the candidate in last place is eliminated, but importantly, the people who voted for her are not eliminated. They still count. And so if you voted for the candidate in last place, light orange, if you voted for her first, your vote will now count for whoever you chose second. We can still see no one gets a majority after that. And so Light purple now is in last. She's eliminated. Her votes move over. After round 3, you have a candidate with a majority, dark purple. She's the winner. And so we can see that this works out quite a bit different than what our current system is, where now you have the candidate winning this election who is actually supported by a majority of the constituents. And that's it. All right, I see we have a question.
Okay, looks like the question says, what jurisdictions have adopted RCV?
So the answer is actually a lot more than you would expect. We're going to get into that a little bit more later, but just not to get ahead of ourselves, more than 50 cities, essentially, and around half a dozen countries as well have all adopted RCV. In fact, if we look at this election right here, we can see it in practice. This is in the Virginia governor race, the governor primary, Republican primary in Virginia, where they actually decided to adopt RCV to avoid that primary effect that I was talking about earlier. They essentially were worried that they would nominate a candidate who couldn't win in the general election. And so they did RCV. And after first round, you see no one has a majority. But by round 6, we see Glenn Youngkin does end up with a majority. And as we all may or may not know, Youngkin did end up actually winning in kind of an upset victory in the governor race that year. And so ranked choice voting is a real practical solution. It eliminates the spoiler effect. It encourages more people to run. It opens up the range of debate, curbs negative campaigning, gives voters more voice and more choice, and it makes politics work for all of us. All right, so we have a question, which is, my alma mater adopted ranked choice voting for student governor elections, government elections. Are there any efforts to adopt RCV within either party's governance and or at the state level? And the answer is yes. We do have state parties, national parties that are all trying to pitch RCV in some way. And in fact, a lot of parties do a just less convenient version of RCV with the delegate process. If you look at like not instant runoff voting, that's RCV done less conveniently, and that is done by a few parties right now, or actually I think in general in an open convention that would be done. We haven't had one of those in a while, but in theory. So the answer is yes, there are efforts to adopt RCV. Okay, so we have a few more questions. I promise I'll get to them. But first, we're going to go back to that earlier question, which is, where is ranked choice voting used? And the answer is statewide. It's been used in Maine and Alaska, Maine since 2016, Alaska since 2020, for federal elections. So that's House elections, Senate elections. It's also used in around 50 cities, in red states, blue states, purple states, all over the country, 29 different states. And, like I said, used in around a half dozen countries, including Australia and Ireland, for 100 years. So this isn't some fantasy solution. This is possible. This has been done and it has worked. So, how can you help? First, you can become a volunteer for RCV. Our volunteers do all sorts of things. They can give presentations like I'm doing. They can canvass. They can send out outreach emails. They can fundraise. There are a ton of things that we can do as volunteers. You can make a tax-deductible donation, or you can host a house party, which is essentially where you get a bunch of your friends together, and then you invite me or one of my colleagues over, and we give this presentation. Really fun, great way to spread the word about RCV. And if you want to support, we have this QR code, should take you to a sign up sheet. I see Lydia right here in the Q&A is already saying that they're going to support, which is fantastic. Thank you, Lydia. You can go ahead, fill out this Q&A, fill out this sign up sheet. I promise we won't spam your inbox. We send around 1 email a month, nothing crazy. Yeah. So if you guys are interested, I'll leave this up for a little bit. And while I'm doing that, A and B are running in the scenario. Is B always? I'm sorry, Yasmin. I don't quite understand your question.
Maybe that was from a previous slide. So so let's just give you another scenario. So it was A and B running, right?
Yeah.
And then A, so it's kind of like that is going to be if it's only two people running, that's all it's going to be is what the answer is. It's really when A, B, and C run, right?
Yes.
If I say A, B, and C win or running, and A looks like they're winning, but B has more number 1 votes and number 2 votes, then B could win. But in A and B, it's either A or B because it's not really a ranked choice because it's only between 2 people. So I think this is a scenario when with ranked choice is something when you have 3 or more that's the reason why you would have it. And so that's why it's very good to have it in a primary if you're going to stick with a primary system that's closed. And in Maryland, we have a closed primary.
Yes, thank you. That's a good answer. Where can you find more information about RCV? You can go to our website, rankthevote.org. Yeah.
And I will actually send an email with that information, and I'll make sure, I guess Lydia is going to go ahead, and I think she did the screen share, but she can give you that information. Okay. So is there any other questions? Because I think, you taught me, in fact, I feel triggered because I feel like you were talking about me. My daughter calls me a boomer, but I'm not. But I have Black people on Facebook because I didn't like what they were saying. So thank you, Aaron, for making me, be more mature. But that was a long time ago. I am actually a person who likes differing opinions, but sometimes when COVID was hitting, it was just too much sometimes. But but thank you. That was like therapy for me, Aaron. Thank you for calling me out. So I just want to thank you so much, and you feel free to stay along with us if you like. But I think I even if we don't have any more questions. Oh, do we have any more questions? See 3 in here. Okay, did we answer those? Say done. Okay, I think we're done. So I also want to ask you a question. Like a lot of times, is there materials that maybe we can print and give out? Like a lot of us in the summertime, there's a lot of fairs and festivals. So, is there some type of literature, or maybe we can have that QR code we can put at our events so people can be understood. And I'm going to clip this too, because actually you have explained it better than probably when I was in my parliamentary procedure class, because he had made us learn how to calculate the votes. And that seemed a little bit more hard than it is to explain why it's important. But so with that, can we get that type of information from you?
Yeah, so we actually normally do, or we also do in-person presentations. And so we do have like a on-paper sign-up sheet like this. We do have, I was canvassing.
No, AJ.
A few weeks ago, I was canvassing at a few Pride events in Maryland. And so we have,
Okay, well then I'm gonna have to get with you, Aaron. So you are local, is that what you're saying? Or because you do DC, but someone else does Maryland? Yeah. Okay, so you do DC normally. Okay.
I'm in DC, but I'm right over the border. So I do Maryland and DC work.
Okay, well, I might have to get the crew to come out when we have different events, because I think this is very important. I do want to say something specifically on Maryland, because I'm in another nonpartisan organization that had a similar presentation. So what I also want to say with this ranked choice voting, so people aren't confused, I think the mission was to try to get this in a local jurisdiction. So Baltimore County doesn't have like organized towns that have a mayor and stuff like that. So like places like on the Eastern Shore where they have mayors, even in Prince George's County, Montgomery County, there are opportunities for those local elections to have this, because some of us are scared of change. So if you did a ranked choice voting, they might be like me, like, I don't know how to calculate it. That's why I changed my major in college, because that was too much math. So I just want to know, is that what I don't know if you're aware of what the Maryland, effort has been, is to get like a city like Rockville or something to do one of these things. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the goal is, I mean, the big goal is eventually federal RCV, like RCV every state, every election. But we also work, within cities, within municipalities, whatever, to get RCV implemented. And so actually, if you look at like Tacoma Park, Maryland, they've had RCV for, I think, around 20 years now or so. They've had RCV implemented. And so, yeah, the goal obviously is to just kind of build support from the ground up, get as much support as we can, show, get it done in cities across Maryland, and show that, hey, this is a thing that works, that eventually we can bring it statewide, nationally. And actually on that, we have a question. Are there any politicians supporting widespread implementation of RCV? The answer is yes. Jamie Raskin actually is a big proponent of RCV. In fact, Obama, this isn't much known, but when he was running for Senate way back when, came out in support of RCV. Not sure if his views have evolved since then. He hasn't talked much about it, but at the time, but I think Senator Kirsten Gillibrand from New York might be in favor. So there are a good amount of people, national political figures, who are in favor of RCV.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, thank you for educating us, because many of us, I wasn't even aware that we already were doing ranked choice voting in the state of Maryland. So I just want to shout out, we do have a state senator on here. So I'm glad he got that information, because, he goes where the laws are made for us. So thank you very much. So at this time, I wanted to introduce two people. I do have a hand raised. Let me see. Is there a hand? Okay, maybe I don't know how to do this.
Looks like there's a hand raised.
Okay. Can you put your question in the chat? Okay. I'm just going to go ahead, and if you put the question in the chat, I will make sure it gets answered. I'm going to go ahead, and I want to, the next item, is the recording going to be shared? Yes, it will. I'm going to be, everyone that's registered. Okay, thank you. I'm going to say that too. As long as you have registered with your email address, you will get a copy of this. So I assume that you did, since you're here, unless you are under somebody else's name and that's their email. And then we have another senator on the that's here, Senator Shelley Heddleman, Maryland State Senator. She says this has been introduced as a bill in the Maryland General Assembly, but it has not passed. So if this is something you like, okay, I'll give you the link to whoever to find out who your senator and delegates are in the Maryland General Assembly. So, this is a good opportunity. If you like it, I love it, because I didn't really, when you gave that example of the mayoral race, that kind of hit home. So, so we'll go ahead and we'll share that information too. So everyone, if you don't know who your person is, you will find out. So thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to talk about the next hot topic. Okay, I'm going to be Wendy Williams today. The hot topic has been, and let me try to change our spotlights. The hot topic has been, and maybe y'all don't know, just on July the 1st, we have, I'm gonna change pins as we go. We have the county council for this beginning of this fiscal year has passed a bill that will allow us to have an opportunity, Baltimore County residents who are voters, to vote for 2 more council districts, okay? So I'm gonna say it hit me home a little bit because I'm in an area that will be in a new district, okay? And a lot of people in my district, I don't even think it's real. So I felt it was, it was important for me to start the conversation, So right now, it'll be on the ballot. Now, I also have been part of an initiative, which is 4 more. Okay. 4 more means that there'll be 4 councilmatic districts. So I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder. I'll let them explain everything, but I wanted to give everybody a basis. And this is in Baltimore County, Maryland, because we have people who are not necessarily from here that might I didn't even know, because I was talking to people today, they said they had no idea. So I think this is a hot topic. I think it's very important that we record this, and we also we have some questions that'll be asked. But I was remote, but I was there. Was just last week there was a meeting with the Maryland Democratic Central Committee, and where Council Chair Patoka gave a presentation, and I asked for him to give that presentation again. And we also can ask some additional questions. I also asked Maryland State Senator Charles Sydnor, who I have been texting and say, hey, what you think about this? He has his own ideas too about, there's even a possibility to go past the finish line to add 4 more districts. And I'll let them tell you why. So these 2 bills are not in competition. I just want to say that. And these are nonpartisan issues. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let Council Chair Patoka introduce himself. For anyone that doesn't know him, now he was first elected on council of the 2nd District in 2018. He's now serving his 2nd term. During his first term in office, he focused on the nuts and bolts of government by putting an emphasis on community input, constituent services, and a strong social media presence to distribute information. As of in January, he became the council chair. If you're familiar with the county council, you do have the opportunity. He has to be elected by his fellow council members to be the chair. So you must be good, okay? So they don't do it for everybody, but they did it for him, okay? And then we have we have Maryland State Senator Charles Sydnor III, Esquire. And he is over on the west side, no, they don't come over here, but because all my friends on the west side, they never come to Essex, but he actually did. And I really do appreciate him because he tries to reach over to our little people in Essex and has come to one of the blue and gold Democratic Club events over the holiday. But Mr. Sydnor, he wants us to consider our racial diversity, and also is as you'll see as we go to the NAACP, Charles Sydnor has been a member of the General Assembly since 2020. He is actually on the Joint Committee on Legislative Ethics. He's a member of the Judicial Proceedings Committee, so you got to be pretty important to be on that committee. By trade, he's also an attorney. So he has a lot of things to say about this issue. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let Chair Patoka, because I know that they have some slides they want to show you, and then we'll have the discussion. I'll let you talk about it and how it all started and why we need it. So thank you very much. Clap, clap, clap.
Thank you, Sharonda, and thank you to the Blue and Gold Democratic Club for giving me an opportunity to speak about this legislation to grow the council. When I became chair this past January, there are a number of items that needed to be tended to that were reviewed over the past couple of years. The master plan needed to be tended to, mixed use zoning, which is an implementation function of the master plan, needed to be tended to. Our adequate public facilities needed to be tended to. And one of the things I think also needed to be tended to that was discussed was the growing the county council. And so these were all complex. They there are competing interests and thoughts in all of these. And Sharonda, I think you were correct when you said people don't like change. In Baltimore County, we especially don't like change. And we're going to try to initiate change from 1956 in the year 2024. So back in, if I could just go back to 1956 for a little bit. In 1956, we were a county of approximately 300,000 people. We became a charter county, and that charter described having 7 council members to represent 300,000 people. It mandated. And so now we're in the year 2024, we have 850,000, and we
Did I do that? Okay, there you go. Okay, go ahead.
There are 7 council members representing 850,000 people, approximately 120,000 per council district. So back in the fall of 2023, the council passed a resolution. That resolution created a council structure work group. That work group had a representative from each of the council members, a county executive representative, and they met, I guess, about a dozen times. And they looked at keeping the council at 7 members, which there was some sentiment to keep the council at 7. They also looked at adding 2 additional council members to make it 9, adding 4 additional council members to make it 11, and there was one that was also looking at the option of 13 council members, so adding 6. And so they resolved a recommendation of 9 council members. One of the goals is to, and let me just say this, that having additional council members is not a performance evaluation of the current council members. It's just to offer a chance for the county council to better reflect the demographics of Baltimore County. And so adding 2 more members and does that, and that was the recommendation of the work group. They actually had a representative on the work group from the 4 More Coalition, and I think it was an excellent point, Sharonda, that you made, that these are not in competition with one another. They are pathways to grow the county council, and there's just 2 different pathways. Well, we hope that there's 2 different pathways. Right now, as of today, we have one pathway, which is adding 2 additional members, and that'll be decided by the voters in November. So I'm going to use a couple of slides. Let me just also say that in regard to change in Baltimore County, there's been different charter review committees, and this idea of growing the council has been looked at for around 4 times over the last 70 years. So we're now almost 70 years old as a charter county. And so over that 70 years, approximately 4 reviews to grow the county, and all of them failed. And the reason they fail is because there are so many complexities and so many competing interests that at the end of the day, no one is happy. And so there was no political will to move it forward until 2024. And so with that framework, I'm just going to present a couple of slides. Just bear with me. And let me ask if you are able to see that slide. Let me try it one more time.
If you can't do it, I think Justin or Carlos can do it for you.
Let me just try it one more time. Bear with me. Let me share my screen. Okay, I think I've got it now. Do you see the slide now?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the county council map of 2022. This was the most recent redistricting, and I'll just give a brief overview of it. There's approximately 120,000 per district. This is District 1. If you can see my cursor, it's represented by Council Member Pat Young. and I think people are familiar with this district. This is Council District 4. This is just represented by Council Member Julian Jones. The pink is what I call the beautiful 2nd District of Baltimore County, and it's an area that I currently represent. The green is it's District 3. It's represented by Councilman Wade Catch. The blue, and just to let you know what this is Charles Street here, this little dividing line between 2 and 6. 6 is represented by Council Member Mike Ertel, and that's this blue area from wraps around both Councilman Ertel, myself, wrapped around the northern part of the city, and Council Member Young, and then Crandall wrapped around the east and west part of the city, respectively. The Council Member Marks, this is District 5, Perry Hall, White Marsh, represented by Council Member Marks. And as I said earlier, this is the east side, Dundalk, and other areas represented by Councilman Crandall. So that's the way we look today in terms of our representation. I'm going to try to skip over to what was, let me just talk about the process so this is where we are in 2022. In trying to get a ballot item through the legislative process, we had a deadline. If it did not get introduced on June 3rd, then it was not going to be possible to do this. So as we went through these other tasks in 2024, the master plan, the adequate public facilities ordinance, the mixed use bill, and budget and other things, this was also something we needed to have bandwidth to review and also to move forward with by June 3rd, because it needed to be wrapped up and moved over to the Board of Elections. So in May, we took the recommendation of the council structure work group. So they met in March. They had about a dozen meetings. They had a couple of public hearings, and we formed that as kind of the basis for the new piece of legislation. And so we needed to have each council member review it and to see if it would be able to garner 5 votes, because from the beginning until we actually voted on it, it was unclear to me whether we had 5 votes. And we needed, the reason I say 5 rather than 4, there are 7 council members. We need a super majority to reach, we need a super majority to get it on the ballot. So we need 4 Democrats, and we need the Republicans to participate as well. And so I met initially with Councilman Ertel and Councilman Young, and I had to do it before, this was in May. It was kind of what I call shuttle diplomacy, meeting with Councilman Young and Councilman Ertel to see what level of comfort they had. I then met with, and the reason I'm meeting with 2 at a time is because I didn't want to violate the Open Meetings Act. We can't have a candid discussion with 4 members in place unless we are inviting the press. And so it was really important to have a candid discussion. After meeting with Councilman Ertel and Councilman Young, I met with Councilman Catch and Councilman Marks to get a level of comfort or where the direction that they wanted to go with this in order to gain support. Got input from them. Everyone has looked at kind of some iteration of the maps that you'll see in just a moment. And then I invited Councilman Jones and Councilman Crandall to meet, and Councilman Jones had a conflict and Councilman Crandall did not respond. So I was unable to have that meeting, but this thing needed to go on January 3rd or it was dead. So it moved forward. Everyone, the council members had a chance to take a look at it. And let me just say some of the dynamics of it. We needed a supermajority. And let's go back to the county charter. Right now, in order to change the charter, to make a charter amendment, we need a supermajority of 5 of the 7 council members. The Republicans indicated very clearly that they were not interested in any map that allowed the Democrats to change the charter without. And so what that would mean is one of the goals and one of the initial iterations of the map had an supermajority African-American, a new African-American supermajority district on the west side and also on the east side. That did not go over well because the Republicans said, well, that creates 2 additional Democratic supermajorities. And then if you have a 6-3 right now with a 4-3 Dem to Republican balance, we the Democrats can't change the charter without the Republicans, without one Republican. They would not agree to any map that would allow a 6-3 ratio, which would allow the Democrats to change the balance or change the charter, to have a charter amendment without a Republican vote. So 6-3, there was no pathway with that balance. So the only thing we could get agreement on was a 5-4 balance, which would still give Democratic control, but also create the opportunity for additional council members to better reflect the demographics of Baltimore County. So that's kind of the playing field we're operating in. So keep in mind this map, and I'm going to flip over, if I do this correctly, to, are you guys seeing the next slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you'll see there are some consistencies in certain districts. So let's look at District 1. This is the district that Councilmember Young represents, and it's similar. Now, the other dynamic with this map is we're going from 120,000 per district to 95,000 per district. So each district will lose 25,000 people, that will lose 25,000 constituents that are represented today by each council member in each council district. Because I did read in the paper, one of my colleagues said that his district was cut, but if you do the math, each district has to lose approximately 25,000 constituents. So District 1, now approximately 95,000 people, similar in shape. District 4, and this is, I believe, this dividing line. This is Randallstown, and west is the makeup of District 4, and I believe this is Rolling Road. District 3 is a brand new district, and this is the Beltway, so it's between the Beltway and Rolling Road, and it goes into some of the Woodlawn area and grows out into some of the Owings Mills area. This new district was taking constituents from District 4, District 1, and District 2 and creating this new district here. And once I go through the map, I'm going to go through the exact demographics of each district. District 5 is similar to District 3. District 2 is currently the district I represent. The inside the Beltway area is pretty similar. It changes a little bit outside the Beltway and into this area in kind of the center part of the county. District 6, this is the district that Mike Ertel represents, and you can see it's similarly shaped, minus 25,000 people. District 7, this is similar to the District 5 that Councilman Marks represents, and that is White Marsh Perry Hall. District 9 is the district that Councilman Crandall represents, similar in shape. District 8 is a brand new district. So the 2 new districts are 3 on the west side, 8 on the east side. If everybody's with me, I'm going to go to the next slide. Let's talk about the demographics, if you can see this. So I think the best chart to look at is the one I'm sliding down to, which is percentage. They each have, well, let me back up just a little bit just to show you that kind of the total. So we used to be at 120,000 per district. Now the ideal population is 95,185 per district. These are the actual numbers under the new map, where you see some are slightly over. This District 1 is under by 500. District 2 is over by 80, and you can see the numbers respectively. These are the raw numbers in terms of demographics, but I want to go to the percentages because they're easier to view. So let's look at District 1. This is the district that currently is represented by Councilman Young. And District 1 is 52% white. And if you look at Black, Hispanic, Asian, two or more races is an interesting category because people may self-identify in different ways. Other race, American Indian, Native Hawaiian. So for ease, I'm just going to separate, for ease of kind of understanding this, I'm just going to separate into, or organize into white and non-white. So District 1 is 52% white, 48% non. District 2 that I represent is 48% white, 52% non-white. District 2 is currently majority minority, and it'll be minority majority if the voters decide to approve this ballot measure. District 3, this is the brand new district. District 3 is 25% white and 75% non-white. And so the hope is that you have a minority representing District 3. District 4 is currently represented by Councilman Jones. It is 24% white, 76% non-white. Now, District 5, which is Northern County, that's currently, this is as white as you can get. It's 81% white and 19% non-white. And it's mostly the northern rural parts of the county. District 6, this is the 54% white, 46% non-white. District 7, 63% white, 47%, 37% non-white. District 8, this is the new district. Let me just double check that.
Yes, 8 is the new district.
Okay, yep. District 8 is 55% white, 45% non-white. District 9 is interesting too. It's currently 60% white and 40% non-white, but it has according to I have a very talented team, but Carlos Gonzalez, who helped me with outreach to the Hispanic community, he is telling me that this Hispanic community is growing exponentially in District 9. So over time, and remember, we haven't had a change since 1956. So there's been no change in 70 years. If we don't make change for another 70 years, these demographics are likely to change. So I will say that when we were on the DS voting on this, I thought it was going to fail. In fact, over the weekend, I thought it was going to fail because I had different members telling me they were going to support it and not support it. In fact, on the DS, Councilman Marks leaned over to me while we were in deliberations and said, "I'm sorry, Izzy, you worked really hard on this, but I can't vote on it." And I asked him to please hold strong and allow the vote to take place because, like I said earlier in my presentation, it is so difficult because of so many competing interests to make change in this county that we need to have the political fortitude to do this, even if there are criticisms that are volleyed towards change. So I'm going to stop right there because I've done a lot of talking. and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you.
Oh,
So, go ahead.
can I say one other thing that I do want to say, Sharonda? So absent of this legislation, if this does not pass, we are going to be parked. The reality of this, if this does not move forward, we are going to be parked in 1956. We're going to be in park. We're going to have the emergency break up, and we're not going to move perhaps for another 70 years. So the reality of it, this doesn't come easy, and it's either this or we're going to just stay in 1956 for the rest of our life, my lifetime, and perhaps I'm older, but hopefully not in your lifetimes.
Well, I do want to say there was an amendment to that bill. So you went over the map, and we're going to talk about that. One of the amendments to the bill was that you will be getting, you have the opportunity to have public input, and that you can amend it if you see fit. Now, what's the deadline to amend the map in that, or is there a deadline?
So there were competing amendments. There were lots of amendments that came up over the weekend. And some, it was difficult to vet such complex amendments over the weekend. But there were two competing amendments that were similar. And the one that did pass was that there could be minor modifications up till October. Hang on, I just got texted. October 1 of 2025. So there will likely be public hearings. This is not the last word you hear on the lines. I don't know that there can be an overhaul of this, but I do think that there can be modifications that make it better.
Okay. Then one of the other questions is the map that was drawn, because my understanding, when you have a charter amendment, the verbiage and everything has to go for legal sufficiency, and how we put things on a ballot when it is attached to a map. I guess I don't understand that complexity. You know what I'm saying? Will it be like an exhibit or something? Because it's not like you're going to go to the ballot box and you're going to have this map attached. So, how does that work, or do you know?
So there won't be a map attached, I will say that.
Okay.
But there will be language. I'm not an attorney, and I especially don't know how to forge language onto a ballot. So I will leave that up to our attorneys that do that kind of work, that figure it out. So I don't have an answer to it. I do know that the three attorneys that, the county attorney, James Benjamin, Tom Boswick, and Adam Phillips, they felt like this was possible. And all of the maps, and again, the Republicans would not participate if we allowed the charter, if we created the ability for the Democrats to change the charter without them. And so we would still be in 1956 without a bipartisan action on this.
So I'm going to ask some questions, but some more questions. But at this point, if you can unshare your screen, I'm going to let and then I'll let you both go back and forth on the answers. I wanted to let Senator Sydnor give us some of his perspectives, and maybe he can talk a little about four more and I know he has a lot of things to say about the bill. So again, I want to introduce Senator Sydnor again, and then you can talk a little bit about yourself and your background, because I didn't go into everything.
Sure, and good evening. Thank you for having me. And it's funny, I was thinking about the topic of tonight, which essentially revolves around voting rights. So how appropriate it is that it's named the John Lewis Day of Action, given the congressman's work on voting rights and his experience attempting to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge for voting rights of Blacks back in the 1960s. I would say that I think from the outside looking in, many of the things that the council chair put forth. It certainly, I don't have disagreement with regards to the facts that are laid out. However, what I would say is that when one looks at the legislation, and I will say me and I talk with a number of colleagues, many of us, I think, and as an advocate for a vote for more, and this is going back to 2022 when we ended up suing Baltimore County because of its initial drawing of the maps and how maps were drawn, packing Black constituents into, I believe it was Councilman Jones's districts. This stuff is extremely relevant and important. As an advocate for 4 more, I know when I had heard that the commission came out with 9, many of us, I think, certainly would have been, while we wanted 4, we would have accepted 9. As the councilman pointed out, by having a county council have 9 members, they're talking about districts at about 95,000 people. However, increasing it by 4, which is what the initiative is about, you would have councilmatic districts at about 78,000, which I believe is certainly appropriate. The issue that many of us, I believe, have with the legislation, and the chairman, he spoke to the reasons why he did it, but it's not necessarily the growing to 9, but it's the growing to 9, in addition, adding a map that many of us believe is harmful. I believe there was commentary in a variety of newspapers where many people who live on the east side, I'm talking, this is a Democratic club, so I'm talking Democrats, they feel that they will no longer have a voice because, and I'm looking at this in a partisan way, you have Republican districts that are +9 in terms of Republican to Democrats, which really means that Democrats aren't going to win. One of the issues that is being fought all across the country is when it comes to topics about gerrymandering. And if you have one district that is so far to the left or so far to the right, what happens is sometimes you get people who are somewhat, people would be characterized as extreme in their views. So you have districts down in Georgia that elect people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And we don't want those kind of people representing here in Baltimore County. When you break down and look at the legislation, it's broken down into a variety of sections. Now, many of us, we've talked about the growth of it to 9, but when you dig into the details, there's a number of other things that are going on with this legislation. I believe there was an op-ed that talks about the modification of the council position from part-time to full-time. That might be of some concern to some people. Of concern to many people is the modification to the task of the redistricting commission. In the past, the redistricting commission, they were tasked with holding hearings and presenting legislation to the county council to then draft with an idea of maps. This legislation, what it does, it strikes that for the redistricting commission, and it says that they can either vote the council districts up or down. And I know the chairperson, he said that there would be an opportunity to comment and things. And I can tell you, even when you go through the regular process, not this new one that's under this bill, there were opportunities to be heard. I had plenty of conversations with our council people, but I will tell you, once a map is drawn, the idea that it's going to change much is not likely that it's going to change. What it is likely going to be what it is. In section 2 of the legislation, there's a modification in the Department of Planning. So with the 2 new members, the planning department grows by 2 members appointed by the county council, by the county councilman. However, the way that it's currently set up, it's a 15-member board with 8 members being appointed by the county executive and 7 by the county council. With this legislation, the balance of power shifts to the legislature, to the legislative branch of the county council rather than of the county council, rather than having the executive branch have the balance of power. The County Board of Appeal changes a little bit. But again, most of the issues center around the addition of the map, not necessarily the growth of the council. I think many people, they still want that ability to chime in, and knowing that they're chiming in could make a difference. The councilman's right. Drawing maps, these getting bills passed, it's a political process. I believe in looking at this map, many of us probably, I think efforts are now going to fall behind the former because when you think about Baltimore County's demographics, racial demographics, and to the councilman's point, if you're talking minority and white population, it's almost 50-50. The councilmanic districts as drawn, they're not. When you talk party, it's for every 1 Republican, there are 2 Democrats. This map does not reflect that. So those are some of the issues where we have issues. Oh, and finally, as a state elected official and as an attorney, I read there's a section in there, section 5, which is on page 10 of the legislation, where the composition and method of how our Baltimore County School Board is put together really took me and some of my colleagues aback because with the way that the legislation was drafted, it was a directive that our school board is going to consist of 9 elected members, 2 appointed members, and 1 student member. And if we go back to how our school board composition was modified, at one point it was all appointed. There was an effort to make it all elected, but that effort failed because there was some concern about diversity on our school board. This will bring this issue to bear. However, we just want to make certain that it's clear that it's the state that decides what the method and the composition of the school board is. And it's not the county council's job to tell us how the school board is going to be. And moving in this direction of a almost fully elected school board without much discussion is of concern. So I will leave it there.
Oh, thank you. You made some great points that I didn't even realize. So can you tell me a little bit, because you did mention that you are an advocate for 4 more. And so I called the Board of Elections today just to see where they were with it. So, the deadline to submit to get a pre-review was last Monday. So the board, which was like the 8th. So they have 20 days to get this
Right.
together. So I believe that, so I want to shout out the person that put a lot of this together, Linda Dorsey Walker. She's been working on this
She's
for
done
years.
an absolutely phenomenal job getting plus 10,000 signatures turned in. But with any effort, when you're trying to get petitions signed and a ballot measure put on, you're going to likely lose some signatures. So the effort is still ongoing. We have until July 29th to get signatures. So if you were to go into your web browser, type vote for more, pull up the browser, you can print out a ballot, not a ballot, but
Petition, a
you
petition.
can exactly
Yeah.
the petition. However, if you do print it out, make certain that you print it double-sided, and go out and you can collect up to 5 signatures per application and get those turned in. So we still have a ways to go. And the idea is to then have both initiatives on the ballot so that the voters have a choice of choosing between 2 more or 4 more.
And so back to taking this bill that's voted on by Baltimore County, taking the power away from our state legislator. Some of those things might, when you bring it up, might be reviewed for legal sufficiency. So, I don't know, we don't know, but you said that, sometimes the maps will change, but can you give us your experience when when the map was changed a little bit? Because they're looking for legal sufficiency. So we might think, hey, we need this and we need that. The judge decides what's legal and what's not. And I don't know what the back breakdown was before. Like we have one district that's 80%. Now that is all country, that 80% white. So I don't know if it was that much change before, that. So I guess for me as a voter and a constituent in District 8, because nobody's really talking about District 8, right? Because we are represented all by Republicans. So I have reached out to my council person and said, hey, can you have some forms? Because we don't know what we don't know. So I'm in Essex, and that will be separated from Dundalk. Okay. A lot of my representatives are in Dundalk. So we might not get as much, to be honest with you, as because we don't get as much attention. So I guess my biggest question is, where do we go from here, right? And I'm going to ask this too for you, Councilman Patoka. Where we know, because whatever happened, right? And I'll ask, the people are asking in the comments, where do we go from here? If we get 4 more on the ballot and we have 2 more on the ballot, what if both of them pass? You know what I'm saying? Because there's things in one, you just want 4 more on this side. 2 more has had these other provisions that maybe none of us even really read. So where do you go from here? You can answer first, Senator Sydnor, and then I'll go to you, Council Chair Patoka. And I think we have Mr. Councilperson Ertel. I think he's been added as well. But I'll let you go first, Senator.
So the assumption is both ballot initiatives are on the ballot and they both pass passed by the voters.
Yeah, what happens?
Okay.
2 different things. So
Well, so a lot of things have to happen. One, we know for certain that the 2 more is gonna be on the ballot, along with the package of everything else that I talked about, is what the voters would be voting on. If 4 more gets the 10,000 signatures and the Board of Elections approves it, it goes forward, voters vote on it, you have 2 essentially competing ballot initiatives. It's my understanding that they will both be adopted, and then someone likely would then have to sue to see which one essentially wins. In Anne Arundel County, they actually have within their charter language that deals with this. And the language in Anne Arundel County allows the ballot initiative with the most votes to win and to take precedent. It's my understanding that we don't have that here in Baltimore County, which is certainly, I think, a charter amendment that I would suggest that our council people might want to look at next go around. So ultimately, what's going to happen? A judge is going to have to decide. That's if they both pass. If the council's ballot initiative garners enough votes and 4 more doesn't, it wins. If the council people's bill doesn't get enough, but 4 more does, 4 more does. So it's a variety of scenarios that could happen.
Okay, well, that answers my question. I had no idea. So I'm going to start a new slogan. It's going to be 4 more, take 2, then sue. Okay, next. Councilman Patoka.
Sure. So let me just say that we all have the same goal. We want to grow the Baltimore County Council. And so we're looking at different pathways to do that. So there's a legislative way to do it. And we as Baltimore County legislators, the county council, we took action as a legislative body. There's also a petition pathway, and that's the 4 more group. We have the same goal of trying to grow the council. If both of them pass, then my understanding is that it'll be Senator Sydnor is an attorney, so he may understand this better than I do. But from what I heard is that the Board of Elections attorneys will sort that out. And I don't know if that requires additional, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't have a subject matter expertise on it. I will say that, we have the same goals, and there's not really, we're not trying to create a shoving match of any kind. I think the idea of the language related to the school board is to recognize, we understand that this is initiated at the state level. There was a lot of amendments and language changes that were going on over the weekend. And like I said, I didn't even know, I had my doubts as to whether it would pass while we were deliberating. But the point is, I think it was just to acknowledge that when you change the makeup of the council, there are other charter changes that have to be made. So for example, the charter says that each council member appoints a planning board member. So that has to be modified. And I do have subject matter in expertise in planning. Professional planner, I'll keep my credentials up. And I will say that the makeup of the Baltimore County Planning Board may not be the best model out there. I'll just leave it at that. So, so there are changes that'll be required. We're going to work with our state partners to figure this out. It's not a push, in my mind, it's not a pushing and shoving match as to who has authority to do what. We've worked as partners in the past, and I expect we'll work as partners moving forward.
Thank you. Now, we had added another council person. I didn't know if Councilman Ertel had any thing he wanted to add.
Yes, Sharonda, can you hear me?
Yes.
So sorry, I'm driving back from DC, so I'm a little compromised tonight, but I'm happy to chime in a little bit here. I was listening to the comments from Senator Sydnor, and one of the things he brought up was the fact that council people, because right now we have 7 council people. We all have an appointment to the planning board, and we all have appointments to several other boards. One of the things that we discussed, and one of the reasons why Councilman Young's amendment was not really considered, because there was no real time or effort to vet whether one of the things we've talked about was if we're going to grow the council, would the county exec be willing to give up some of his appointments or some of her, and potentially her appointments one day, right? And I'm, I'm a little concerned about why we think that the county exec should have more appointments. Because often what we've seen in the past is, and I'm not talking about our current county exec, but in the past, sometimes those appointments are abused in the sense of we've had county execs in the past who tend to put developer-friendly candidates in all the, on many of the boards, including the planning board and Board of Appeals and things like that. So that's something that's going to have to be worked out. And if 4 more passes, there's no language there either about how that works out. And I feel like we're sitting here once again where, Senator Sydnor never came to us. No other delegate or senator came to us about this. Councilman Young, who, at the very end came in with some amendments that were last minute, literally, the weekend before the vote, when, we had 2 weeks to talk about it. This has been a subject matter since the beginning of the year when we had the council structure committee. I don't think any delegate or senator came and testified then. So it's curious that we're having this new debate now. But, if it goes on the ballot, the voters will decide, and hopefully it won't be a judge deciding, because I don't know that that's better than the voters.
Now, if I may, one thing that I attempted not to do was to call names or anything like that, but I will say that for the most part, I would say the county council probably did not hear from many of my colleagues, because my colleagues believed that with a Democratic majority in power, that there was nothing, that there was anything to talk about. And as I noted before, I don't think any of us were opposed to growing the council to 9 members. The issue comes up when a map is drawn, a 5-4 map that completely gives up Democrats on the east side of Baltimore County. They have no opportunity to even win anymore. That's where the issue comes in. And it was not until, and I'll tell you, I was in Canada when you all, I guess, maybe published this. It wasn't until I got back, and it was that Sunday night, that I got an email at about 11 p.m. in the evening, that I found out that there was even any map being considered. We knew that you all were voting on 9 more, and like that's great. Again, the map is really important, and the councilman, he's right. The 4 more ballot initiative doesn't go into planning board appointments and all that stuff can be left. I mean, can be done. You all can then we can have those debates about whether or not the county executive should be controlling an executive function of government. I mean, or quasi executive function of government, which is the planning board. I don't know if the public had those conversations, but again, what we're here to talk about tonight is voting and voting power and the like. And I would say that most of my colleagues in the state Senate or the state General Assembly probably feel that the voters, the map could have been done later, not in accordance with the growth of the council.
And let me, to your point, let me just say this. I asked for things honestly, because when you make a map, like I need an overlay. Like give me like the information that was out now wasn't out before. To your point, like I don't know what I don't know. Like I'm like yeah, they splitting up the thing, but I'm not sure of the racial composition. So just to be honest, I'm just going to speak as a nonpartisan person, not just because you're at the club. So when you go before making maps and going along with the voter writers right the Voters Right Act, we're looking at the how the racial background of the maps are drawn. So it really doesn't matter about Democrat and Republican, to be honest with you. If you go to court, you're going to have to prove, are you disenfranchising or redlining people who might speak English as a second language, or Black people? And I'm that Black person. Now I know where I live, but I don't know when you split up the district what that really means to me. And so one person did ask, have we, you know, when you look at maps, and I used to work in Baltimore City, a lot of times you can do a lot of overlays. So I'm just asking if that the council can start doing that. Make the overlays so someone can figure out, if I go to this precinct, what does it look like? Because to me, if we're going to have the conversation, then we need to have not just 2 meetings. You need to go to each district that's going to be, because if you have a meeting in Dundalk, a lot of people over in Essex are not going to Dundalk, okay? But this issue is affecting the people in Essex, because you're still going to have your council person maybe, but the people over in 8, we don't know what's happening. So I just want to keep that in mind. And I know that you wanted to say something, Councilperson Ertel. I just wanted to put that out there. Everything wasn't out there till after the fact.
I understand. And, one of the things that obviously Chairman Patoka talked about was, first of all, we had one Democrat who suddenly has changed his tune, who did not want to expand the council at all. So we were down one Democrat going into this battle who wanted to stay with 7. That wouldn't have necessarily changed everything, but we had to have a supermajority to pass this. And also these districts, and I often feel like there's some kind of undercurrent out there about districts. They're based on communities. We can't gerrymander them to go across spectrums to pick up certain people, like have a line across the county. In council districts always had to do with communities. And that was one of the things we're really proud of with this map is we've added another district on the Liberty Road corridor, which should elect another African American. We have other districts that have higher amounts of minorities, as the county is naturally progressing toward that anyway. And one of the other things we believe is that the future of the Dundalk district in particular, for a Republican to be holding that position, is going to be limited probably to the next 4 to 8 years at the most. That district's becoming very Democratic. It's becoming very African American and very Hispanic. And as some have pointed out, it may be our first Hispanic representative there in the future. We're also going to redistrict again in 2034 after the 2030 census. So in 2031, we have to redistrict. Those people, or those districts will be voted on, not voted on, but there'll be new representatives or people representing those realigned districts for 34. So while we might have a possibility, remember, these districts aren't necessarily going to be 5 Democrats to 4 Republicans. A Democrat could win one of these districts that look potentially where a Republican could win. But again, this isn't going to hold up for long. The county is going to change, and the demographics are going to change. So, and again, that doesn't mean that anybody should be rah-rah on this from the standpoint of the way we had to do it. But like I said, I think in the end, these keep communities together, and these communities are going to progress, diversity wise. No matter what we do, the county is changing in diversity. We're getting all kinds of people here, from Hispanic immigrants, African immigrants, South Asian. We have a big Nepali population in my district. And we're going to see those changes. There's a big Muslim population developing on the west side that we all know. So things are changing in Baltimore County. The thing that wasn't changing, as Chairman Patoka said, was they've been talking about adding council districts for 40 years, since 1978, and nobody did anything about it. And we finally did it on the 1st. And if the 4 more goes on the ballot, then it'll be great to see what the voters think of all that.
So if I may, and we touched on this a little bit earlier. There's some concepts when you're doing redistricting. There's cracking and there's packing. Okay. And I know you said you wanted to talk about the maps racially, and outside of the information that the chair gave. I guess unless you're looking at software that kind of overlays racial demographics that I don't have access to, is somewhat more difficult to talk about that. But if you look at this in a partisan way, again, the districts that would lean Democrat, you're talking plus 22%, plus 59%, plus 60%, plus 42%, plus 34%. And the districts that lean Republican, you're talking plus 9 in each of them, except for one where it's a plus 12 in the map for District 7. You're going to have some issues as a Democrat winning in those red districts. You're going to have problems running as a Republican on the west side of Baltimore County. There's certainly no need to pack Democrats like that over on the west side. And it's certainly not necessary to draw a map where you're going to have plus 9, where a Democrat is highly likely not to ever win. So again, to what my message was earlier, grow the council, but the amendment that Councilman Young put forth and Councilman Cash put forth should have been accepted. There should not have been a map as a part of this process.
Senator Sydnor, Councilman Cash's amendment was successful.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
If I could add also, so the discussion is reflective of why this has been such a challenge to do. And I kind of misspoke earlier. I said that if we don't move the needle forward this year, then we wouldn't be parked in 1956 for a lifetime. We would be parked in 1956 until 2032. And in 2032, there'll be another redistricting. And that will be a beginning point of a 7-member council, or it could be the beginning point of a 9-member council, or maybe the beginning point of an 11-member council. We will see what the voters decide. And so I think that like I said earlier, we all have the same goal. And this is we're in 2026. So whatever it turns out to be, there'll be an 8-year threshold. If you look at it in terms of the threshold that we've been through with no change of 70 years, I believe it's progress. Like Councilman Ertel said, going into it, we knew the intelligence we had was public statements that council members had made over the last couple of years. When I campaigned for my 2022 election, I said we should grow the council. I was public about it. There were other members that said, hey, we're good at 7. We don't need any change. And some were Democrats. And so we could not do this without a bipartisan action. And like I said, up to the last minute, I didn't know what the votes would be. So I'm going to stop there. We talked for a long time, and I know there may be questions.
Let me unmute myself. I think some of these questions were answered. So you can, I'm going to tell you. So some of them say, is it better to leave the east side behind in order to expand the council? So when we say leave the east side behind, let me just say, I'm on the east side. I'm already behind, so maybe I don't know the difference. So, but that's a legitimate thing. They're feeling like this is split. Now, let me just say something positive, okay? Just because we're at a point where it appears that some places are leaning a certain direction, and I believe, I don't know the accuracy of everything, but I do have a map that I can share that was made by someone on the Democratic Central Committee of where people are leaning when you do these district changes. I share that when I send out my second one, but I'll share that in the thing. There's opportunities, right? Just because something appears to be a certain way, there are a lot of people who are not registered to vote. So one of the things that I might not even get to it tonight, I might just email you what's from with one of the messages from the NAACP is you have opportunities to register people to vote. You don't necessarily have to be where you are now. It might be something that you need to be more engaged. For me, you might not even be aware, you can register someone to vote at 16 years old. My son has been registered to vote since he was 17. So whenever my child voted for the first time when he turned 18. So I just want to put it out there. Like, just because you have a voting area now, and then we have also a lot of people on the east side over here that are registered to vote and they don't vote. So there is always opportunities for improvement. So back to that, if anyone likes to make the respond to, is it better to leave the east side behind or to expand the council?
I'll say that I like Governor Moore's comment about leaving no one behind. I believe what you do is you take a whole nother look and try to redo the maps. There's got to be a better way of doing it. But to your point, Ms. Huffman, and I believe the chairman, when he had the map, the data up regarding the revision to the councilmatic districts, you'll note that exhibit, it has 2 charts. Actually, it's 4 charts. 2 regarding a total population summary, and 1 regarding the voting age population summary. And so you're going to have different numbers because you can have a large minority population, total population, but that minority population may be lower, a lower voting population. So humans tend to be creatures of habit, and if they're voters, they're voters. If they're not, they may be hard to come. I mean, but you have to do the work. To your point, you still do the work, but the information that he shared has that information that you can look at. Is my point.
Okay, if anybody else would you like to respond?
Sure. So no, we don't want to leave anybody behind. I think we need to move the needle forward on this. The population changes, and in regard to voting at age population, Senator Sydnor makes a good point. But those that are not voting age, they will be voting age at some point, and so the numbers are similar. But I do think we don't. The idea is, irrespective of the demographics, is to run a robust campaign. When I first ran, I was the underdog. I had, I will say, people were identifying me as a communist. Some of the, my opponent's supporters, but my mom was a communist, and I think my son could be. but I am not. But so those are the challenges of a campaign. And in order, sometimes you have to overcome the challenges of a campaign, you know, especially in this day and age of so many instruments of information. And
Can I?
And let me just say, and instruments of misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Councilman Ertel.
No. Sorry to interrupt. If I may add a couple items. I am an East Side Democrat. And Senator Sydnor, one of the challenges that we do have on the East Side is we aren't the West Side, and we don't have the luxury of having an almost all Democratic populace on the East Side of the county. And you know, there tends to be the East Side. You know, there's no reason why Dundalk should be Republican, but a lot of that changed because of things that happened where people were disgruntled with it. In fact, we have a lot of Democrats on the East Side that are Democrats in name only, and they vote Republican. So we sometimes don't even know who are you know, they're super voters often, and they vote Republican in the general sometimes. So it's hard to identify them. But I don't think we're leaving the East Side behind unless, as you said, we get some, you know, really out there far right candidate. But, you know, often we see some of the Republicans that represent those areas, as the Democrats are going to be moderate, tend to be moderate type electeds, I would say. And I think, like I said, we're going to get there just the way the county population is going. We might temporarily have a situation where we're 5-4 if the 9 passes, but I think we're going to get 6-3 and 7-2 fairly quickly.
So that was kind of the question. You answered it. Where is the Democratic Republican breakdown? I'm sure you looked at it. So like they said, I'll send out the map that I have. I don't know. I can't, you know, say the legitimacy of the accuracy or whatever, because it's not coming from the Board of Elections. However, like you said, it looks like if you did the breakdown, you know, it'd be leaning 5 Democrat, 4 Republican. If you're going by I guess the registered voters, is that what we're looking at? Or the voters? Like, I don't know what that breakdown would be, but I guess in their mind, because I do want to say this, on this side of town, I think I'm in legislative district 7. We have more registered Democrats, but not everybody votes, and some super voters actually vote Republican. Sometimes you like who you like, and you know, and sometimes, you know, it's because we're in a very blue state. You know, I just want to say I have been discriminated against because of who I was registered as. For a long time, I might have gone independent just because I worked in government. So I do take that in consideration when I decide on what I'm doing. So when I say I want to get more involved in politics, I just have to say who I am. So that might be many of us who live on this side of town, but that doesn't mean that's how they vote. So that can be a challenge. And I want to answer the question already. The maps were part of the legislation that is for the additional 2 more districts. So someone says, if you vote to expand the council, you vote to accept this red line map. Minor changes mean no change will be made. The East Side is Democrat, the West Side is Republican. So I guess keep it real, right? If I feel Chair Patoka tried to get, you know, this negotiated, he did the best he can to get this done. Okay, so I don't feel like, you know, even going to say it, I just said everything. I'm just going to keep it real. If we don't have a conversation with our individual council districts, even the new ones that are going to be created, I think that you will have on record what people prefer. I don't feel like the way we're talking about this that having these conversations will change anything if it requires a supermajority. However, what it can do is put on record what the citizens actually want, because there could be an issue, because I don't know if it's under the law or not, but when we're having changes to bills, I think you're required to have public input. Okay. And there really was no public input on the map, because the map had even changed before when the bill came up. So I don't, you can, tell me what you think. That's just my opinion. You're trying to
Javon,
unmute.
what was that
Yes, go ahead.
I didn't know if you were targeting that question.
No, I'm done. I was going to say that's just my opinion.
No,
That I don't think it's really going to change, because they want what they want.
Likely, and I'm going to go back to what we discussed earlier, there likely will be public hearings to collect additional community input. Going into this, if I counted votes to 5 before we started, and I thought there was a pathway to 5 before we started, 5 votes, and the 5 I counted before were not the 5 that actually voted in support of this. So it's been a challenge from beginning to end. And like I said earlier, there's a good reason why there has been no change over the history of Baltimore County.
To your point, maps are hard to change. The map that we currently have changed only after Baltimore County was sued by me and some other citizens, along with the NAACP and the ACLU. And it was there in federal court that we got an injunction on the initial map. And it was not because we did not try. Many of us talked to our council people, and there were tweaks that were made in northern Baltimore County and over in eastern Baltimore County, but none of those changes were made that we had asked for on the west side. And it wouldn't have been changed. That map would not have been changed, but for a lawsuit and a judge ruling in the plaintiff's favor. So I think what you see is pretty much what we're going to get.
Well, and also, Senator Sydnor, to your point, I don't want to get too much detail to the 2022 map, but because it is, I think there's some level of litigation in terms of payment still pending. But there was, an unusual alliance in that 2022 where at the end of the day, I know Council District 2 changed dramatically, and but only after, other instruments of change were used. But it was a hard go.
Hey,
I don't want to compromise any other legal activities going.
Well, a lot of these are a lot of the same. Okay. So I'm gonna say something that's true. Okay. Everybody on the call could have done more, right? If everybody's goal was to have 4 more, okay, this going forward and how we organize, if every legislator was like, every meeting I'm gonna have, I want you to sign the 4 more, right? I want y'all to sign the 4 more. I'm talking about on the state level, on the local level. This question is, if the goal is to expand the council, why didn't we just go ahead through with the endorsement and active participation of 4 more initiative with Linda Dorsey Walker? Could have done this without Republicans. Okay, so that's a good point.
That,
yes, go ahead.
So the ballot initiative through petition may or may not happen. We are legislators. We, the county council, we are legislators. We could make it happen if we had the political will to do 11, to do 9, to do 13. It's all about having the political fortitude to legislate change. And quite frankly, we did not have that political fortitude in this effort until after it was done. And then all of a sudden, we had the political fortitude to want to do change through petition rather than through legislators legislate.
Look, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. After coming out of the litigation against the county, I immediately signed on for more, have participated and gathered signatures, and have had the club that I'm with also going out and working along with Miss Dorsey Walker, who's done, again, a phenomenal job. So I just want to make certain that that record is clear.
Okay, well, thank you. So I'm going to conclude by saying, we have 2 more or 4 more, and I think that we are trying to make changes. And I want to say everything is temporary. So going forward, right, we have a legislative agenda. One of the things I heard that Senator Sydnor said, we have something, if we have competing amendments, we don't have any provisions that say who, if you get the highest vote, what happens. Okay. I also heard some things about, making sure we have fair maps. So if we did want to do this in the very beginning in January, I just want to say, going forward, it would have been nice to get those people, like the nonpartisan organizations, their feedback. And then if we couldn't get it by the Republicans, right? If you couldn't, you're a legislator, but you can be a person that says, hey, we want to get a petition done, and we can't do it through them, so we got to do it through another way. I mean, I just think that even as legislators, sometimes we got to go through a different way. That's just my take, because I believe in getting things done in a fair manner, and sometimes you can't bring everybody with you if they don't really want to be part of the solution. But personally, I'm looking forward to the challenge. If somebody wants to change the direction, just like where I lived at, it was very Democrat. There was a change in 2014. There's not like it can't be a change in 2026. Okay, so I'm not on the negative side. I just believe there's always something that we can do. Saying that, I just want to, okay, since I still got people still on the phone, thank God. Okay, because I have like so Nashona Kess is okay. Linda has till the 20th to turn in more seniors. Let's get them. That's what Chuck said. Okay, so is she announcing somewhere where she's meeting people to get these signatures? Senator Sydnor. I know she's been very much on the west side, but I don't know if she has any particular places. And you know what? I will send out her information in the email with this recording. So if you want to sign it, she will come and meet you. Okay, so she's
doing a Herculean effort getting people's ballots and things in. But again, a good bit of information and contact information is right at the Vote for More website.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and I'll send it out. So at this point, I'm going to just share a part of the video that I wanted to end with from Nashona Kess. She is actually the conference. I'm sorry, she's at the NAACP conference in Las Vegas, but she just want to share some closing words. And I will also share some information in this email to you all about the NAACP and how you can join, because guess what? They are fighting the power so we can get this John Lewis day of action to be real and pass some voting laws. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. And I just want to thank everybody for joining tonight. And just give me about 10 more minutes, okay? 10 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you for inviting me here, Ms. Huffman. I certainly appreciate you and providing this opportunity for me to come to the audience and talk a little bit about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. My name is Nashona Kess. I come to you in my personal capacity as a licensed attorney. I also have a master's of science and legal studies, to which I studied government affairs and policy, and I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy. I also, my daytime job, I am the executive director for the Maryland State Conference of the NAACP, which is a nonpartisan organization. So I just wanted to jump in there a little bit and talk about the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and kind of break down some of the important points here and where we kind of stand today. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is a landmark piece of legislation. It's aimed at prohibiting racial discrimination in voting. Some of the key provisions, the sections I kind of want to pull out, Section 2, which prohibits any voting practice or procedure that discriminates on the basis of race, color, or membership in a minority class. Okay, and then I wanted to put
that must be a sign that y'all need to go to bed. Okay, so I'm gonna send the rest of I'm gonna send the rest of that video out to you. But I just want to thank all of our guests tonight. We had Aaron regarding ranked choice voting. We had Senator Sydnor. We talked about 4 more, and I'm gonna say take 2. We had Councilman Patoka. We had Councilman Ertel, and we also had me. Oh, and one more thing, I will talk a little bit about the Democratic National Convention. I just want to say there is no way that Joe Biden is not going to be the person that's going to be selected at Democratic National Convention. I just want to, there's been a lot of speculation. I've been called by the ABC and XYZ to everybody else. The way they have set up these rules that have been started back in like 2022, 23, they basically going to have us vote before we get there, so there is like an impossibility for anyone to just go to the convention and then become the person unless it was Kamala Harris. I was on a meeting over the weekend and they specifically said, if you go to the FEC filing, nobody's going to get the money of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris except Kamala Harris if Joe Biden was not going to be the elected person. And the reason, so the process is still the same. We can all go to the convention because I'm an elected delegate from Congressional District 2. You could select Joe Blow. It doesn't matter because they still have to go through the process of doing the registration in all these different states and territories, and the deadline has already passed. So I don't think that's a reality. So I think that it's very, we have to all start reading, right? And not to go by the propaganda. I think the news is becoming very salacious. Instead of us focusing on, is somebody lying? We want to, start talking about, well, they sick and they can't run. That's not a reality. So I just want to dispel that rumor. So that was my, I'm very excited about going to the Democratic National Convention, and I definitely will be following up. I think it's an opportunity where you can start, you network, you put out your ideas. If you go to the YouTube, they have a DNC YouTube where you can see all of the different committees. When I go there, a lot of the stuff is done. The platform has been voted on. The rules will be voted on. So it's a lot of, yes, we are selecting him, but we're going to select him before we even get there. I might get the the voter runner thing, an email over the weekend. I get calls from Delaware all the time, and it's not my family because that's where I'm from. It's the Biden campaign. So they're very on top of everything. So I just want to dispel those rumors. Biden will be selected. Okay, so I'm going to end on that note. And I want to wish you all well and thank you for hanging in there with us tonight. And I also want to say, I will start being more proactive in updating our website, but we also can be found theblueandgolddems.com. We have a Facebook page, the Blue and Gold Democratic Club. So I will be sending everybody that registered a copy of this, as well as the additional documents and I have already have everything that Councilman Patoka showed, and I have some additional documents, and I will also have the video with Nashona Kess. But I want to again thank you for joining us, and I can't wait to talk about this more. The next time we're going to talk about this, right? We're going to actually know what's passed, and then I'm gonna bring some of these people back because I want to talk about some of these housing initiatives, because I'll be getting on Councilman Patoka. Okay, so I'm just telling you, I'm warning you. Okay, well, I want to have a good night and happy John Lewis Day action. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.